We recently saw Eid al-Adha come and go. And during that time period, there was a lot of activity on social media where people were talking about the rights of the animals, right, when they're being slaughtered. And that's great. And I just want to share a small reflection on this. See, when you study usul al-fiqh, right, the principles of jurisprudence in Islamic law, you come across this concept called maqasid-based ijtihad, which is basically this concept where when you're deriving Islamic law, when you're doing your ijtihad, you should also take into consideration the purpose or the intention behind those laws or those rulings. That is the concept of maqasid-based ijtihad. Now, the concept itself is not exactly very unanimously agreed upon. There is debate among scholars about whether it should be used, shouldn't be used, in what context can it be used, and so on and so forth. So that's a disclaimer here. But if we consider this concept, then we have to consider whenever we look at any set of, any ruling, why? Like, what is the purpose? What is this ruling trying to achieve? So, when we consider all of these rulings about the slaughtering of the animals, so for example, that the knife shouldn't be sharpened in front of the animal, or one animal shouldn't see the other being slaughtered, or that the animals should be treated well while they're alive, all of these things, we think about what is the overarching purpose of these rulings, and what do we get? The purpose is that we don't want to cause unnecessary suffering to the animals, right? That is what all of these laws are trying to do. That seems to be what the intention is. So, considering that, based on the principles of maqasid-based ijtihad, what you then extrapolate is that we should avoid unnecessary suffering for animals across the board. Which brings me to factory farming. Whenever we look at any sort of large-scale venture where people use animals as the product, as the commodity, I have yet to see an example where the animals are treated well. Whether we talk about the actual slaughterhouse, the way they're handled there, or we talk about their life before that, the way they're housed, right? The cramped conditions and so on and so forth. I've yet to see a situation where you have the animals being treated as a commodity, where they are the product, right, for the business, and also be treated humanely. It just doesn't happen. So that sort of setup then, based on maqasid-based ijtihad, causes unnecessary suffering and is therefore un-Islamic. Now, I'm not trying to make the claim that the meat from these kind of setups would be haram. That's not for me to say. I'm not a faqih, right? I'll leave that to the jurists out there. But what I am saying is that this is something worth thinking about, and is definitely something that the Prophet would not approve of.